So what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Behind the Grind, where we critique and review your favorite video games. Today's topic of discussion is going to be my personal problem with Space Marine 2, and this is going to be a different kind of video in which I'm not really reading off a script. I'm more so turning on the mic and just going over my thoughts about the way that this game has been handled and some of the content we've gotten ever since I've made my last video. Before we dive in, please consider giving this video a like and subscribe to the channel, as it really helps out tremendously. So let's get started. So we got a new pistol in the game called the Neo-Volkite pistol, accessible to some of the classes, and I gave it a shot in some of the operations earlier today. I played on the lower difficulties because obviously the weapon is level 1 and it's not that strong right now. But what I can say is that against lower level infantry like Hormagaunts, Termagants, and lower level Chaos minions, it's really good. It's not a pistol that fires actual rounds, it's more like a laser beam. So you're not necessarily going to be getting those immediate headshots. You kind of got to hold the laser onto an enemy until he blows up. And this isn't really that bad when it comes to low level infantry, but it can get pretty restrictive when it comes to some of the higher level enemies, as it's not really dealing that much damage and you're not getting rid of them as quick enough. As you level it up, I'm sure it gets a lot better when it comes to staggering, but as it is right now, you're going to have a pretty hard time leveling it up because it's really just not that strong as compared to some of the other bolt weapons that fire actual rounds. So now that we've talked about the Neo-Volkite pistol, let's get to the point of this video right now, and that is my personal issues with Space Marine 2 and the way that this game is being handled. It's from my understanding that this game wasn't made from a really large development group, and that when it comes to Space Marine 2, it's a really focused game at times. However, when it comes to the Warhammer 40k licensing and like the world that you can make, there's a lot that you can do, and I just feel like Space Marine 2 could have done so much more. But how? So let's talk about point number one, which is for me, lack of variety. When it comes to the campaign and all the world design in the game itself, you really only get three choices here. You get the first level of Kadaku, you get the seventh level of Avarax, and you get the third level of Demirium. So you either get jungle, really high holy city, or space outworld destroyed purple world or whatever it is. And you feel this and you can see this across all the different game modes. There's lack of variety in the campaign missions, lack of variety in operations, and severe lack of variety in the online multiplayer, to the point where you only get 3 maps in multiplayer and about 7 operations as a whole. But the thing is that they all feel the same because there's just no variety in it. With the amount of worlds and the amount of different enemy factions that they could have done, this could have been done a lot better, and it just gets too repetitive over and over again. Like I said in my previous video, the intensely repetitive online multiplayer that is Eternal War, just, I don't know, there's just something about it that after a couple games, I can't even really get into it anymore. It's just too repetitive, and you have 3 maps and you have 3 game modes, and I do understand that it's not the focus here. However, if you're going to put in the effort to actually create and develop an Eternal War game mode, you can certainly do a lot better than 3 maps and modes. And I personally believe that this is a huge shortcoming of what they could have done with a Warhammer 40k online multiplayer experience. There's just not enough content. I saw on some roadmaps that horde mode is eventually going to come to the game, but I have a huge problem with this because Gears of War 2 came out in 2009, and if a horde mode worked all the way back then, there's just no excuse for horde not to work here. You have a little bit of that in the campaign, in which there's that spot in the first mission where if you sit outside those giant iron doors, you could just repeat, and kill hundreds and thousands of enemies as you grind for the 41,000 kills trophy, where that's where I did that. And you can certainly see that a horde could work because enemies just spawn and they never stop spawning. Also, going back to Eternal War and customization in general, I speak about this in my last video, but the restricted colors and icons, this is where I have a huge problem with some of the stuff in this game, because there's no excuse to have restricted colors. When you start monetizing the customization of your game, when it comes to just colors and basic customization, then you really run into a problem here. And Halo Infinite really had this problem in which they sold the color blue for like $20, they sold color reds, and they just didn't give the player freedom to pick and choose whatever color they wanted. And Space Marine 2 is certainly guilty of this. The fact that you have to pay actual money just to throw on a color to your Space Marine is just ridiculous, and it's unacceptable to me personally. And then going into Eternal War as well, we have no chaos customization. This is a massive disappointment when it comes to Space Marine 2 because everything that you could have done with the Chaos Legions is just not here at all. You get some basic chapter customization, like you get some Night Lords and you get like the Death Guard, but that's about it. Like you can't really customize your character to the way that you want it. And I've seen some content online saying that, well, you can't have swappable armor like the normal Astartes do because some of the armor is just so much more different than some of the other different chaos chapters, and you won't be able to mix and match as well. So like with like the Death Guard, you have some protruding elements like horns or some disgusting like ratchet stuff, and then with Thousand Suns, you get some of that cleaner, more Egyptian style customization. And this is a simple fix. The way I would have personally done it is seeing how they already have some chapters laid out for the each specific class. You might as well just have gone all in when it comes to customization for said class. Keep it class internal. Like you could have had the Thousand Suns for maybe, I don't know, let's just say the assault class. I'm just throwing that out there. Well, then keep all the Thousand Suns armor pieces and customization locked to that specific class. Or like with Bulwark and Death Guard, just keep the main chapter Death Guard and just keep all the customization armor pieces locked to Death Guard. We're not necessarily asking for swappable armor across all the different chapters, but I feel like if you're just going to do it like that, you might as well lock in all the way. There's a lot you could have done here, and they dropped the ball, and it's unacceptable. And going into a little rant with operations here, 3 factions, ridiculous. Imperium of Man, Tyranids, and the Thousand Suns. Once again, going to Space Marine and Warhammer in general. You have so much you could have done here. I understand that this is a really focused experience, but when the players have given you this much money and this much praise, you could have done more with this. And they need to lock in and pump out some content because it's starting to get stale. More operations here, they can be too tedious and unfair at times, especially on lethal difficulty. I personally beat them all on lethal difficulty already, and I unlocked my Survivor's Helm, but some of the enemies in lethal is just ridiculous. Like, I can get with like a Tyrannifex or whatever, but them Neurothorps on lethal difficulty is just ridiculous. And then they'll spawn in like 2 at a time, and it's just completely unfair. And there's just nothing you can do about it because if you're playing with a melee focused class and you run out of ammo, you're just cooked because these enemies fly in the air and there's just nothing you can do to fight them. However, if you're running a tactical with a grenade launcher, you'll be fine. So overall, I'm getting pretty stale from playing the game. I'm not necessarily finding any enjoyment per se. It's still fun and the game loop is still pretty good, but there's just nothing for me here to really experience that's new, and there's no variety to the gameplay. So there's no reason for me to be coming back. And I understand the game developers are working on it, but a lot of stuff could have really been delivered on day one, like that horde mode. Space Marine 2, in order to stay relevant throughout 2025, really needs to pump those numbers up and just start pounding us with content and keeping this game fresh and new because the gamers love it. Everybody loves Space Marine 2. There might not be a lot of content, but I can comfortably say that people that have actually played it are more so happy with the state of the game, but everybody recognizes that you could have done more with it. What Space Marine 3 needs to be successful, they really need to take some notes here and they just need to multiply everything by 2. Maps, modes, playable legions, characters, everything. Just ramp it up by 2. Get that variety out there. So that pretty much is it for my little rant. I'm sorry if I kind of went off a little bit, but I needed to vent my frustration with Space Marine 2 because I love this game. Believe me, this game is great. It's completely gotten me into Warhammer. I've been painting and collecting miniatures ever since I bought the game, and it's just kind of sad. I know that they were going for something a lot smaller here, but when you have an IP such as Warhammer 40K, like there's just so much that you could have done with this. And they need to start pumping up those numbers if they want to stay relevant throughout 2025. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel as it helps out tremendously, and I will see you in the next one.